Welcome back. So it's a Thursday morning, and as we gear up for election 2020, a lot of discourse we're going to be having. So before we bring you that bit with my co-host Mama Vioso Abwaje and the MP for Wejak Bawe, how about we do this one? Analysis of the campaign trail. It's a conversation on the NDC's posturing on matters relating to the Electoral Commission. There's also the president commissioning projects everywhere, if you like. Significant at this time? That's a question we're posing. Our guests this morning, Dr. Amache Boateng, a political scientist with the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and his counterpart from the University of Ghana, political scientist Dr. Alidu Seidu. They'll be both joining us for a conversation on this matter, both of them via Zoom. Let me quickly say a very good morning to Dr. Amache Boateng and Dr. Alidu Seidu. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to connect with you once more. So let's start from Dr. Amache Boateng. Let's start from your end. The Electoral Commission has been in a bit of a trade-off situation, if you like, trading responses with regard to some of the matters that have cropped up in recent times ahead of election 2020. The National Democratic Congress has raised issues to do with the ballot papers, to do with its security, to do with myriad matters. Looking at what you've observed so far, what are your concerns in the approach of the NDC and that of the Electoral Commission?
Okay, let me say good morning to your viewers, and right away to say that it is really unfortunate, and I think that all the parties who want to take a second look at what have transpired so far. The NDC is coming from somewhere. You know, when Madam Charlotte Osei was in office, the opposition of the day had issues with her. And then what happened, and Charlotte Osei is no longer there. We have Madam Jane Mensah. So you want to ask yourself whether it is a payback time. You know, the way, Charlotte Osei's leadership at the EC was, questioned and heckled. Is it a payback time? And then you have also information, coming ahead of time from the NDC indicating that they were not going to give Jane Mensah, a peace of mind, and that in a way they were going to putting pressure on her, in a way that it relates to things that they are doing that, come out as errors, come out as irregularities. It's only fair. But then if it becomes persistent the way it is, getting to, then definitely there's cause for concern. But then the EC itself has not also helped the matter. Their pronouncements, have not helped. Previously, the position they have taken, to the best of my understanding, as far as the usefulness of IPAC is concerned, to me adds to the confusion. The EC should know that the IPAC is a major instrument it has in ensuring transparency, and it's a major element in achieving transparency. If you are engaging with bodies, and especially from the EC, given its work, if even Donald Trump of the United States of America had cause to be concerned about the EC operating fairly with him, then definitely ECs around the world, don't have their own way all the time. It never happens anywhere. The work they do is such that there's always the possibility that people will take technical challenges as political manipulations, political partisanship. That sort of intersection is there. The EC's ability to be efficient dispels such challenges. So let me just end here and say that what is transpiring now is not healthy for our system.
Are you suggesting, very briefly, that it's a tit-for-tat situation and that the NDC, now finding itself in the opposition, is trying with all of these, criticisms to sort of get back at the other side, in this case, Jean Mensa, who came to replace Charlotte Osei? Is that the suggestion?
I'm asking questions. But then, has the NDC been dabbling in, if you like, issues without justifications? Some of the issues they pointed out are worth pointing out, and I think they have helped even the EC itself to get things done properly. So one may not necessarily, point to that it's a payback time. But I'm only asking questions in a way to let the NDC know that if they don't really calm down and approach the way they go about some of the issues properly, I mean, there's this tendency for people to, come to that understanding. I don't think the NDC has been crying wolf. No, some of the issues they point out are relevant and need to be addressed in order to get the EC to do the right thing, crucially to establish electoral integrity. And that is very, very significant. Electoral credibility and then integrity so that people can trust the outcome.
Dr. Ali Dusaidu, now I'll throw that same question to you. Looking at the banter, the back and forth between the Electoral Commission and mostly the National Democratic Congress, what are your greatest concerns? What are your takeaways? What are the things that we ought to be looking at to forestall any incidents ahead of election day?
Okay, thank you so much. If you look at the workings of election management bodies across the world, people usually, especially actors, political actors usually have reasons to doubt the credibility of electoral commissions because of several reasons. One, you are looking at, if you go back to the academic literature, the whole concept of institutions and institutionalism. Institutions are created to actually shape the way we behave, but also to install that sense of discipline in the way we do things. So it is not by accident that most election management bodies, EMBs, are always preferably set up to be independent from political interference of the executive. Over the years, we realized that political EMBs are only independent as long as the elites agree for those institutions to be independent. Elite consensus can actually force election management bodies to behave in a way that betray the constitutional provision of independence and non-interference. In Ghana, if you go back historically to the conduct of elections, there has always been that back and forth, depending on where the political party that is making the accusation finds itself, whether in opposition or in government. But the recent events over the appointment of new commissioners, the dismissal of Charlotte Osei and all those things have gone a long way to heighten that kind of suspicion that the NDC may have about the Electoral Commission. And like my very good friend mentioned, recent events have actually gone a little bit to actually vindicate most of the suspicions that the NDC has raised against the Electoral Commission. I think moving forward, it is important that the Electoral Commission is able to conduct itself in a manner that brings back credibility to the work that they do, because it is very important. The outcome of the electoral processes is very important, just as the processes that leads to the outcome. So we have to make sure that the EC works in a manner that restores credibility, so that at the end of the day, people don't have, the actors specifically don't have issues to blame or suspect the kind of results that they are going to bring forth after December 7th.
Right.
It is very crucial. If people don't trust the processes, the outcome will not be accepted.
Just to pick on two main, very important things that you just said. One of them being the fact that you feel the EC, through its own actions, has lent some credibility to part of what the NDC has been saying. And the other bit that the EC must act in a way to restore credibility. Would that suggest that the EC, the Electoral Commission, has lost credibility as far as you are concerned?
I wouldn't say that completely, because if you look at the recent survey conducted by the CDD, I think some few weeks back, it suggested that the Electoral Commission is credible. Even though these opinion polls, it depends on the people that they have spoken to, the sample size, and they could be biased or whatever it is. But recent statistics shows that by the CDD shows that there is a little bit element of credibility. But if you juxtapose that too with the Afrobarometer survey, I think around 7, it also speaks to the fact that there is a little bit of suspicion. That is not so much credibility in terms of the work some state institutions do. And specifically, the EC was part of the state institutions that the around 7 of the Afrobarometer looks at. But the most recent, the EC's, the recent CDD survey actually kind of have a little bit slightly different from the around 7 of the Afrobarometer survey. But when we are going to pick it, we say that CDD is the most recent. And it shows that there is Ghanaians have so much trust for the Electoral Commission to be able to do its work. So if you're going to look at empirical data from the CDD survey, it suggests that Ghanaians have confidence in the manner that the EC is going to conduct the election. But if you look at the actors are very important. At the end of the day, the acceptance of electoral results by the actors can lead to the kind of peace that we want in this country. The rejection of that particular outcome by these actors can also lead to something else. So what is more important is the fact that if survey results are pointing to one thing and the actions or the utterances of the institution is pointing to the other, we can reconcile them. So what I'm saying is that the data surveys, we've had surveys in this country, and sometimes most of those surveys may not turn out to be the way it's supposed to be. Okay. Even if you look at the American elections, they have the most sophisticated of instruments to be able to do a very good survey. It got things, the level at which they thought Donald Trump would have lost, it didn't happen. And in 2016, it was also similar. They all wrote Donald Trump off, and he emerged a winner. So these are just perceptions. What is more important is the fact that the perceptions matches with the reality and the actions of the institution that is being assessed. If there seems to be a discrepancy, then it creates more room for contestations, and contestation doesn't lead to an outcome that is good.
Just because you made those points, so those political actors, including the Electoral Commission and all the other political parties, what exactly would you be looking forward to seeing from them to forestall maybe even what we've seen in the United States that you use as an example, where an election, the result of an election is contested, and a whole lot comes to bear as a result of that, where the democracy itself that they are practicing comes into question. What can those political actors, together with the Electoral Commission, do to forestall any scenes that we don't want to see ahead of Election Day?
So my good friend made a very important point about consultations through IPAC. I think in the work of a very important state agency like the EC, there should be broader consultation, but also consensus. You cannot use just majoritarian decision at IPAC to be able to arrive at a conclusion and implement. There should be an element of consensus building. There should be an element of broader consultation. There should be an element of participation. Once we have all these things done, and all the people who have accused you of doing things wrongly are part of the decision-making process, and you let them participate in everything, they will see how fair the process is. And if they have reasons to accuse you, people will tell them, but you were part of the process that led to that particular decision. We have seen over the years that IPAC, that kind of political gamemanship we play in town, has now been translated into the whole meetings of IPAC. IPAC is seriously divided between these two major political parties, and people have reasons to believe that when decisions are going to be taken, some people's letters are either, some political parties' letters are either served late, or the date is changed, or the time is manufactured. Sorry, the time is stated in such a way that by the time they will come, the processes or the important decisions are sort of been taken. If you do it this way, then the very institution that you will have used to build that element of credibility is also being tainted by partisanship. And once we begin to look at things that way, it doesn't help. So I believe the best way they can move forward and build that credibility has to do with border-based consultation, consensus-oriented decision-making process, and then transparency. in everything that they do, there should be that element of transparency so that everybody sees how they go about doing their things. And if you have every reason to question any process, they are on standby to explain to you. That is one of the best way that this credibility can be restored, kind of.
Let me come to Dr. Amachi Boateng. Now, one other crucial issue that has come to the fore in recent times has to do with special voting. On December the 1st, media people, security agencies, members of security agencies, even staff of the Electoral Commission will be voting. But there has been some issue to do with a compilation of that list, and some have suggested, like security analyst Adam Bona, that there are problems with the list, that the list is not what it ought to be, and that some people could be disenfranchised ahead of voting day. Now, for those on that list, you know that if you don't get to vote on December the 1st, you will not qualify. Your name will not be on the general list for voting on December the 7th. The EC has been delivering some responses to that. What is your take on that matter, and how do we forestall disenfranchising ordinary Ghanaians who are in these institutions?
Dr.
Amachi Boateng, are you with us?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, I'm with you.
Great. So how do we prevent a case where those who are, special voters are disenfranchised on voting day?
I think the EC, as we just said, should be ready to continue to be sensitive to the environment. For example, the input that has come in, they should use it to go into their documents, cross-check, and find out whether there's anything untoward. I don't know whether they can't even do some sort of, maybe exhibition is late now. It should be possible for the EC to really go over its work, cross-check, and put the dots there and cross all the T's. I think that shouldn't be a big deal at all. But
is it not too little, too late?
I don't think it's late now. I don't think it's late. It's relates to data, and I think their experts should be able to go through, pinpoint areas that people have fears are going to have people disenfranchised, and then go in there to see whether those names are in place or not. It should be possible for them to do corrections that ought to be done. But quickly, let me just add that the electoral process ends with the courts. So that Ghana, where we've come to, we should not be talking about violence if any party disputes the outcome of the elections or anything. I don't think we should be speaking to violence. No. At this time, violence, Ghana has gone beyond that. In 2012, we went there. There was a major disagreement. They went to the court. The electoral process ends with the judiciary. So violence should be taken out completely. There should be no room for that. If anybody, goes there, then it's purposive intention. Someone trying to hide behind the elections to achieve something. And I think when it happens like that, the security should be strong enough to stamp the needed authority. So we should not be speaking to violence should there be any disagreement. There are bound to be disagreements here and there, given the nature of the work of the election management body, not only but all over the world. And let me say that the US case is nothing untoward. Donald Trump so far has been legal. The only thing is that there's a normative, response that he should give by conceding. And he thinks he should go through the courts to make sure every ballot paper that ought to be counted is counted. So far, he's legal. There's nothing wrong doing at all.
Well, thank you very much for that. Now, we'll be moving on to the second segment of our conversation to talk about the commissioning of projects, their relevance at this point in time. But let's connect with my colleague, Elton Brobe. He has been touring, with His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Elton, good morning to you.
Good morning, Akapo.
Great. Good to connect with you. Now, what exactly has been happening on the campaign trail with the president? What has he been up to? What's the schedule for today?
All right. So as you can see, we are currently at the Jubilee House. What is happening is that we are getting ourselves ready to join the convoy. The convoy is making a stop in the central region for the next few days, starting today. So the entire electioneering team, together with the president, the media, everybody is getting ready to start today's journey. So that will be for the next 3 days, today, tomorrow, and then the day after. It will climax the Central Regional Tour with the funeral of the late MP from Fansiman, Ekohe Hayford, who was, murdered by some suspected armed robbers. That will be the last event in the Central Region. But this morning, the president will make a stop at Bujumbura. He will interact with traders on the stretch. In Football is subject to commission, one district, one factory project, and then we'll sleep in the Central Regional Capital, Cape Coast, and then continue from there from the days to follow. So yesterday was the conclusion of the first phase of the Greater Accra Regional Tour, which ended with a rally at East Legon in the Ayawaso West Legon constituency. Lydian Al-Hassan is the parliamentary candidate for that particular area. President Akufo-Addo, together with his Minister for Trade, Minister for Works and Housing, took turns to address the crowd. The issue about who implemented the free senior high school policy was high on the agenda, coming from all the speakers that mounted the platform. President Akufo-Addo, he is still in shock and is finding it difficult to explain the rationale behind former President Mohammed's assertion that he started the free senior high school program. He says that the evidence is there and it's clear for everyone to see. As to who started it, there's no doubt about it. As far as he is concerned, he started it, the evidence supports it, and that for a former president to assume that he started a free senior high school program with the construction of the E-blocks smacks of deceit and lies, something that he describes as an inspiring campaign that he is undertaking and needed to do something to rejuvenate. That's how come he went on that particular tangent. But for him, he's done so much well. He's delivered on almost all the promises he made to Ghanaians in the run-up to the 2016 elections. People should assess him, and if they are comfortable with what he's done so far, then there will be the need for him to give him 4 more years, because he has laid a solid foundation that is about to take off. And 4 more years will see Ghana transform from where it is now to where it is destined to be. So that concluded the tour of the Greater Accra region. Last night, actually before returning to bed, he launched a short code for people to continuously donate towards the construction of the National Cathedral. When he met leaders of religious bodies at the Alisa Hotel to update on progress made so far towards the construction of the National Cathedral. So a short code was launched yesterday for Ghanaians to contribute towards the construction of the facility. So we are getting ready to hit the Central Region for the next 3 days. The Central Region, according to them, is very important because they are looking at a region that has become so swing in the electoral pattern of this country, more especially when the running mate of the NDC hails from the Central Region. So more attention, according to handlers of the president, will be devoted to the Central Region. That's how come for the next 3 days, President Akufo-Addo will spend in the Central Region. From the Central Region, he will spend a day in the Western Region, and then we'll move to the Ashanti region for another 3 days, and then come back to the Greater Accra region for another 3 days to wrap up the electioneering campaign for the president's second term bid. Greater Accra is key for them. Whoever is able to win Greater Accra will stand a greater chance of winning the national elections. And the MPP has a target to win 28 out of the 33 seats available in the Greater Accra region, and also to win the popular votes for the presidential post. So that presents a very quite challenge scenario for the MPP, but they are counting on their record in government to push them to the goal that they set for themselves.
Well, thank you very much, Elton, for bringing us up to speed. Elton Brobe, who's been touring with His Excellency the President. And of course, the next stop is the Central Region. If you look at the distribution of seats there, you'd realize just how crucial that is. So we're going to wrap up on this conversation, but from the standpoint of the commissioning of projects. And in recent times, we've seen a lot of that. Road projects like the Obechebi-Lamte interchange, which, we only saw in recent days being commissioned, the first phase of that one. And we've seen some hospital projects as well, even housing projects. Now, the question is, how relevant are they, at the 11th hour when an election draws nigh? And should we even support this, where right at the dawn of an election, we commission a lot of projects, maybe to win votes? That's a question I'll put to my guests for their brief take on it. Dr. Saidu, I'll start with you on this one. What is your take?
Okay, I think politicians always make promises and assure the people of bettering their life and livelihood when they win. So sometimes most of these projects are usually things that they have promised them, but sometimes they are just things that they believe if they do, they can win the votes of the populace. My problem has to do with the timing. Largely, political parties win power, they forget about everything. Then in the last minutes to the elections, they come and commission half-completed projects just to make people believe that they are actually up to the task, or they need 4 more years to be able to complete the project. I think Ghanaians have been coming so descending over the years, and they look at the intention, not necessarily the project, but the intention and the purpose for which the project is supposed to serve. They consider that. If you look at 24 years back, 2016, the former president, John Dramani Mahama, was even named Commissioner General because he spent almost the entire last minute of his campaign commissioning projects. Some of them fully completed, some of them half completed. But he didn't win the elections. So it suggests that Ghanaians are not just looking at what you do and which time you commission them, but they are also becoming discerning. They know that politicians are now beginning to play politics with them by commissioning half big projects at the last minute. Then they are wondering, when you came to power, what were you doing? And then you, just at the last minute, you have started doing all this commissioning of projects and all those things. So one, the party faithfuls, it becomes a rallying point for them to sell the achievement of their government or political party to the people. But to the discerning listener, he reads in between the lines and looks at the importance of the project, the timing of the project, and for what reasons the project is being commissioned at the time that it has been commissioned, when it cannot even perform the full task or full beneficiary, give the full benefit that it's supposed to give to the people. But people go ahead to commission it. So I think the discerning listeners who always determine the winner, who always determine the winner of every election, read in between the lines. To the party faithfuls, it becomes, these kind of things become the rallying point for them to trumpet the achievement of their government. But at the end of the day, the people will decide.
Talking about the people deciding very briefly, now, you, I suppose, are one of those discerning, voters. Do you feel that any of the projects springing up or being commissioned are merely for votes?
To me, from where I sit, I think it is the responsibility of government. That is why we entrust them into power, to provide these things. So I don't see the building or commissioning of projects and all those things as one of the reasons why I will vote for a political party. I look at the policies that you've mentioned, the relative benefit of that policy to me as a person, to the community, and to the state at large. And now look at how you conduct yourself from the very day you are entrusted with the power to govern up to the last minute. I read your intentions, and I also read in between the lines. So I'm a discerning voter. Some of these things don't move me. I know why I vote. And I believe largely a lot of Ghanaians are also moving towards the direction of becoming rational voters. So they look at the intention from day one, the policies that you have promised vis-a-vis the effort that you have made from the word go, not at the last minute.
Right. Dr. Amakye Boateng, now commissioning projects in the dying embers of an administration, like we've seen time without number, how relevant is that? Is it even important? Does it influence votes in any way?
I think it depends on the nature of the projects when it was started. It depends on the work of the particular government over the period that the government has been in office. Crucially, let's acknowledge the fact that development is a function of politics, so that the moment politics begin to translate into development, the moment politicians come to know that they must embark on development projects, otherwise they will not get the votes they need to hold on to. The whole country will be beginning to, take a new turn. So to me, time is not necessarily a factor. That's got to do with what the government of the day has been doing during the period that it had its mandate. And if particular projects have to be commissioned at a moment in time, why not? So that is not really the point. I mean, the character of the state vis-a-vis the use of the state's resources, to spur development, to bring change, qualitative change in the life of the people. If this is seen, people see this, I expect people to vote, in support of, good work done.
Thank you very much for discoursing with us, gentlemen. Dr. Amakye Boateng is with the Political Science Department of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Dr. Halidu Seidu with the same department on the other side, the University of Ghana. Gentlemen, thank you so much.